Hello and welcome. I am so excited to have you with me tonight. Um, I'm love that people have already been chatting with me in the chat box. You know how to use that. That is excellent because I really value engagement. I really value input and questions and answers and things like that. So please keep playing in that chat box with me. I do want just a quick little survey, if you will. How many of you have any kind of iridology training already? If you do, drop a comment in that chat box and let me know that you have iridology training of any description with any teacher, or you've read a book and you've been playing with it, or but you're at least familiar with it. Let me know in the chat box if you've got some background in this. Yeah, okay. All right. There's one. Only your mini classes, Jennifer. So glad you're here for this then. Yeah, we're just going to keep diving a little bit deeper and see where we go, right? I actually didn't mean to forward that slide yet. That's okay. We'll catch up to it. Like I mentioned earlier that my main computer was having an issue with my camera, so I'm working on my laptop to do this. And there will be some technical challenges with this. I promise you there absolutely will be. Again, I just would love it if you would play with me in that chat box. So if knowing who's got background and who doesn't, and knowing what level of background you've got will help me to literally tweak this presentation on the fly so that it's more meaningful for you. And that's really important. You've committed 90 minutes of your evening. That's a good chunk of time in this day and age. And I want this to be valuable for you. So play with me in the chat box so I can make this be valuable for you. You got it? We agree that that's okay? Would that be okay if I make this really work for you because you are giving me feedback? Okay, so disclaimer, Cobblestone Health Limited, doing business as Iridology Education, is not responsible for any results, good or bad, you get from this information. And that includes, I'm not responsible, right? You alone are responsible for the results you get. If you use iridology, you are responsible to have the appropriate liability insurance, and you're required to respect and adhere to your local laws and have the required credentials for the use of iridology. And if you offer nutritional supplements, you need to have the right training and be abiding by the laws where you live. Things are getting really sticky out there, but we can color inside the lines, and we can do a good job and help a lot of people. And that's what we're after here tonight. So I would like to know, I'm going to do another little, oh my goodness, like I said, technical issues. There we go. I would like to know a little survey here again, why you are here tonight. Are you looking for a low invasive way to assess your clients? So you've maybe heard about iridology or you've experienced iridology, and you're looking for an inexpensive, easy, non-invasive way to get the information you need about your client's health. Or maybe you've studied iridology already and it's not working for you, and you wonder if you're missing something or if you're doing it wrong. That could be. I've had many students who've been in that kind of a situation. Or maybe you're just curious and you wanted a low commitment way to investigate it further. Now, there are no right answers. No, let me rephrase that. There's no wrong answers here. No wrong answers. There's only your answer. And again, if I know where you're coming from, I can do a better job of meeting your needs tonight. If you are here for a reason other than these, please drop it in the chat box. Let me know so that I can make sure that I am including your needs in what we are doing here tonight. Okay, and we've got some new people who are just exploring. We've got people who are curious about it. Oh, this is so excellent. So it sounds like we've got a lot of people who are pretty new to this. No formal training. You've heard about it. You've maybe seen things on social media, and you are wanting to have some live interaction to learn more. So this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. All right. There we go. So you've heard about it or you've experienced it as a diagnostic tool, air quotes, and you're looking for a low invasive way to assess your clients. So if that's why you're here today, this is so great. If you are a practitioner, how many of you are holistic health practitioners? Drop that in the chat box. Let me know if you are a herbalist or a nutritionist or a functional RN, or you're a chiropractor, or you're an aromatherapist, or you're something. Great. Fantastic. Oh, so good. So good. Yes, yes, yes. So you're going to be probably surprised to learn that when you do iridology the way I teach it, it will save you hours of time in assessing your clients and figuring out how to work with your clients in the most effective way. When I teach iridology, I teach it at a professional level that will allow you to do a solid and appropriate assessment with program creation in 20 minutes, leaving you lots of time in your appointments to actually get to know your clients really well, right? To create that rapport, to create that trust level. So, as a matter of fact, I encourage you to start using whatever you're going to learn in this course tonight. We're going to learn a few basic little things tonight. Start using it right away. Start experimenting with it with your clients just to see how it will work for you. Julie is saying acupuncturist worked in ophthalmology for 14 years. You know the eye well then. Previous iridology training on a faster way to review iris conjunctiva. So good, so good. We're going to really talk about those kinds of things tonight because it's really important that you not get bogged down in what you're doing with iridology. Iridology is so powerful for helping you to develop a really great rapport with your clients and to help you gather pertinent information. And the big bonus is when you do it the right way, and yes, I'm being very judgmental when I say that, it will encourage clients to come back for follow-ups. And isn't that what we all want, is long-term retention with our clients and excellent rapport, right? We want that trust level with them. So if your reason that you've heard about iridology and you're here for this is because you want more information about how to use it in your business, in your coaching and things like that, then you're at the right place. We are going to make that happen tonight. Okay, what if you studied iridology already and it's not working for you? This is something I take really seriously. If you studied iridology, oh, I'm going to be really, yeah, I'm going to walk a fine line. This might get some people mad at me. If you studied iridology and it's not working for you, it's not your fault. It's probably your teacher's fault. Ooh, did I just offend somebody? I hope not. I've had a lot of students who were previously certified by other instructors, and they were taught the nuts and bolts really well. They can identify any kind of a marking in the iris, and they can give you the textbook definition of what that marking is. But they weren't taught how to use it in practical application. I've had students come to me who were certified through IPA, through other organizations, and when they went back to their teacher and asked, but how do I use it? The teacher said to them, you'll figure it out. And I got to tell you, I think that's just throwing your student under the bus. That's asking for them to quit it and to just give up on iridology altogether, right? When I teach, and you're going to see this tonight, I include practical application. I think it's critical that students have a starting point of not just the nuts and bolts, but how do we use this? What is one way of integrating this into an appointment? I feel like if I give my students that starting point, they will gradually be able to take that and shape it into their own way of doing things. Certainly my way works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, I'm sure, as far as integrating it. But if I give students a starting point, there's a better chance that they will find their way more quickly and not get frustrated. So if you're already trained in iridology, but you lack confidence, or you want to add knowledge and you want to be mentored, then welcome. I am really glad you're here. What if you're just curious? And I know some of you are saying you're just curious. You want a low commitment way to investigate this further. Fantastic. That's totally fair. And I think it's a brilliant thing to do. I'm so glad you're with us tonight. When I went to university as a young adult, I applied to two different universities. One was 1,000 miles away and one was 1,200 miles away. I knew I could be happy at either. Well, I thought I could be happy at either. But the one that won out was actually the one that invited me down in the winter. So, we applied like in December, and I was accepted by early February at both schools. But the one that won out was the one that invited me to come down for a weekend, tour the campus. Um, I'd say wine and dine, but there was no wine involved. They wanted to show me around. They wanted me to meet professors. They wanted me to see what the campus was like and things like that. That's the school that won out because I got to meet people. I got to meet other students who were in the faculty I was going to be in. And that's why it won out, because I got to see what that school was all about. And so, if you're just curious, I'm glad you're here. This is your way of having a little campus tour, right? Figuring out who's the instructor, how does she teach, what is this course anyways? So this is an interactive open house. I've got so much to share with you tonight. I hope you've got a pen and a paper to write down questions you've got. I'm going to be asking questions throughout the evening. You already know that because you've seen it already. I really hope you'll answer, that you'll play with me in my sandbox, as I call it. And I really want to make sure this information fits for you and that you get what you came for tonight. The facts of the matter are, iridology is a powerful assessment tool. Confidence can be nurtured and developed. And that's my goal with all of my students, is to nurture them to have the confidence and the knowledge, yes, and the confidence they need to be able to do this well. All right, so I'm going to do a really quick intro. Some of you have been with me for a while. I've got one of the graduates of my course with us tonight. Some of you have been hanging out on my little weekly mini classes. And so you kind of know me. Some of you have had my little 5-class intro to iridology, the email with the videos. So let's just do a really quick intro here. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. I am one of only 10 level 3 IPA certified instructors in the world. Level 3 was just introduced about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was one of the first 3 to hop on that bus and do the course and do the certification and get there. This is the highest level of certification that IPA offers at this point in time. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've been in the holistic health industry, started getting curious about natural health actually as a teenager, and started studying it seriously, well, semi-seriously in 79 when I met my husband, my then to become later on husband. And then in 1981, I really dove in with both feet and walked away from my university training when this close to graduating. And here I am doing this now. I started this journey because as a young adult, I had some health problems that the doctors didn't seem to care about. They didn't seem to want to find the problems. And so, that kind of soured me on medical world a little bit more than what I had been as a younger teen. I was in university studying to be a school teacher, but I ended up dropping out to get married. And I was like, seriously, 2 semesters from graduating. Like, it made my father and my mother absolutely cringe, but that's okay. And then, like I said, it's just gone from there. I've studied under at least, well, now we can make it 10 iridology instructors, 4 different types of iris analysis. I've studied herbology and nutrition and so many other things with so many other teachers that I've lost count. I stopped framing the certificates they sent me because I don't have enough room on the walls. And that's not a bragging point. What I'm saying is, you never know everything. And you always want to keep learning, right? Do you agree with me that we always need to keep learning? If we want to stay fresh, we need to stay in this, right? Whatever you want to do, keep learning in it. I've designed and taught a lot of herbal, nutrition, iridology courses, and my first love now is iridology, of course. And so the course that I teach is called Dynamic Iridology Assessment System. It is the entire curriculum that IPA requires. They call it level 1 and level 2, that IPA requires as level 1 and level 2 in order for students to sit for the certification exam. I needed to put it together in a slightly different way than IPA had outlined it to make it actually work for me. I've also, like I said, designed and taught herb courses, biokinesiology courses, or muscle therapy, muscle testing, color therapy, women's health. And for a while, I was even a certified prenatal educator. That was a ton of fun because fertility and pregnancy are some other passions of mine. In 2022, I was selected as the IPA Instructor of the Year. That was an absolute and complete shock. I had absolutely no idea that was coming at me. And in 2000, oh, I cannot get my computer to advance the way I want it to. There we go. Have to be firm. 2024, I was chosen as the Iridologist of the Year by IPA. So just accolades that I'm just doing what I love. That's it. I'm just doing what I love. And apparently it shows. Okay, so and just a month or two ago was applied to IPA to become a sanctioned school, to become an approved of school. And even though I've been teaching the IPA curriculum and preparing students for certification for years, I finally decided I wanted to be a sanctioned school. So and they accepted me, which is very cool, because they're a little bit picky, right? They have their standards. I'm also a nutrition professional associated with these two nutrition organizations, CanPro and CanP, and also Master Herbalist. And thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for those congratulatory comments. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So I've got all of this, and I integrate, Jennifer, I integrate herbology into most of my courses that I teach, just so you know. All right. What one of my other students said, this is Karen Choate. She said this. I asked her how learning iridology had helped her in her business. And this is what she said. I just need to move this little panel on my screen so I can actually read this. There we go. Judith, I just returned from a regenerative detoxification course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience with their iridology education. They had no support, unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. What I say earlier, right? I feel so totally and absolutely blessed to have been taught by you. I feel totally supported even still as I've graduated. It's been 5 or 6 years now. It's been a long time. I don't think there's anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm eternally grateful for your never-ending patience and support. Love that. So love that. Then I asked her, how has learning constitutional iridology helped you in your business? And this is important, right? If you're a health coach, regardless of what your modality is, regardless of what you do with your clients, you want to make sure that the courses you take are going to be a benefit to you and your clients in your business, right? We've all taken classes that after the end of it, we went, well, okay, that was an experience, but I don't think I'll ever use it, right? And so I really strive to let that not happen. Karen described it this way. Iridology has helped me to understand the relationships between the different organs and organ systems more in depth. Iridology also gives me an advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits, yes, and qualities that may be underlying. But observing the constitution, for example, or by observing the constitution, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it has helped me to expand my knowledge and increased efficiency at providing more precise recommendations for health-oriented options. So good, so very good. All right, let's dive in. Quick little background of iridology before we look at some eyes. Stay with me to the end of today because I'm going to share information with you about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course that will be starting in about a month. Okay. But in order for us to really get iridology, we actually have to know a little bit about where it came from. It's rooted in ancient cultures like Egypt, India, China, and Greece. Now, we know that science evolves, right? Science isn't the answers. Science is the questions. And in asking questions, that's how we find more information. I don't know that we ever find absolute answers here, but all science does evolve. And good scientists ask questions and they find what the results those questions bring. Then they ask more questions and they keep digging deeper. Do you agree with me that that is science? Rather, that is good science. Science has gotten a really bad name these last 4 or 5 years, right? Do you agree with me that science is the art of asking questions and doing research and then taking that research and asking more questions? Because that's what we do with iridology. Love to see if you agree with me in the chat box there. Yeah. Stay curious. I love that. Stay curious. Who was it? There was an influencer probably a decade ago that produced a little YouTube video, and it boiled down to always have a beginner's mindset. Always have a beginner's mindset. And I really have embraced that. So this all started back in the 1800s as for the modern iteration, because Egypt, Greece, and all those places, that's a long time ago, right? We have a little boy named Ignaz van Petzl. Now we're going to I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but we're going to throw his story under the bus. He became intrigued with the eyes, and the story goes that he found an owl that had a broken wing. He nursed it back to health. And in the process, he was only 11 at the time. In the process, he says that he saw something in the eye that disappeared with time. It's never been replicated. You'd think with all the bird sanctuaries that we've got for injured birds that it would be replicated somewhere. It's never been replicated. So we have to take that and throw it away. But what we love about this is something about that triggered Ignaz's curiosity. There's that word, curious, stay curious, so that he became a medical doctor. And he started drawing his patients' eyes, writing out their stories. Can you imagine correlating this information by hand without a database or an algorithm in a computer? I mean, it blows my mind. And gradually, he started laying the foundation for what we now use as an iridology map, right? Very cool. Pastor Neil Liljeqvist, also in Central Europe in Sweden, he correlated that when you look at an iris, we'll look at some in a few minutes, and you see the way the fibers are sitting in the eye. If there's a high fiber count per square inch, so to speak, this meant the person genetically had more resilient health. Their body would throw off disease more quickly. It would fight off disease more easily. It would recover more quickly if something happened to it. And so that was his contribution. Then we have Pastor Emanuel Felka, who was crucial in defining constitutions. And we're going to introduce a bit of constitution tonight to you. There's still an institute in Germany called the Felka Institute that teaches iridology. And then we have Rudolf Schnabel. I like his quote. He said this: "It was no easy task, and those who believe or would like to believe that handling iridoscopy," that's what they used to call iridology, "can be learned within a few weeks or even days are mistaken and do a disservice to a good cause," which is exactly why I will never teach a weekend workshop, at least not a full-on course. I'll teach intro sessions, but not a full-on course as a weekend. You can't do enough justice. We have Joseph Angerer, who was a student of Schnabel's. Joseph became a naturopath. He was concerned because there were so many different people doing research and they were all creating their own language around the eyes. He really wanted people to kind of get together. Can we just agree on the words we're going to use here so that we can all speak the same language? It hasn't happened yet. But he knew that students were reading books and accepting the printed word about iridology before adequate research was completed. Many people back then were publishing books based on their theories. This is what I think, not this is what we've proven. And there's still a lot of that information out there. But now the things they published as theories, we now know whether they were correct or not. And most of them were not totally correct, but that information is still floating around out there. People are still teaching it as if it's the gospel truth. So we need to learn what those are so we can back away from them and stay with the current and most up-to-date information. Joseph Deck published books about constitutional iridology. Again, that's very cool because he introduced that too, or he worked with that as well. Theodore Kriege said iridology is not a standalone assessment tool. He wanted to see it being used with things like fingernail analysis, urine analysis, feces analysis, all these different things. He wanted it to be something that would validate. He wanted to use it as a validation to say, this is what I found with fingernail analysis, and therefore this is what I see in the eye, so this is what I know. So finding 2 or more sources for the information before saying this is what we've got. Right? So very, very cool stuff. That some of these were very critical thinkers. And then we have Dr. Bernard Jensen, whom I never had the pleasure of studying with, but my Jensenian teacher, at least 2 of them had studied with Jensen personally, right? And so he kept iridology alive during the Cold War years. We are so grateful to him for keeping some semblance of iridology going. He did so much good for so many people, right? We just know that, again, a lot of his work was based on some of the work that's been disproved. And so we're having to move on from him, loving him and revering him for all of the good he's done, and grateful that he laid a foundation for us to build on, right? Then we have Harry Wolff, who was an American-born German. He could read and speak German fluently. He got his hands on a book by Joseph Deck. It was in German, which means I'll never be able to read it. And so he started reading this and going, oh my goodness. Harry was a holistic practitioner. I think he did massage and a few other things, maybe acupuncture and whatever. But he glommed onto this and he fell in love with it. And then he partnered up with Bill Cardona, who at the time was a registered pharmacist. And they started teaching weekend workshops and doing little promotional things in different fairs and going around and just trying to get the word out. Bill later became the iridology instructor at Bastyr in Seattle when they offered an iridology program. And then he became a naturopath. He's a very busy naturopath. And he was my constitutional instructor. I'm still in touch with him. So appreciative of all of the support and encouragement he's given me over the last 30 odd years. Pretty amazing. Quick look at 3 common types of iridology that are seen in North America right now. Right, this is not meant to confuse anybody, but there are at least 3. We've got Jensenian, we've got Rayid or emotional or behavioral. Those are all kind of the same group. And we have constitutional. We're going to do a quick intro on these, and then we're going to land on constitutional. So Jensenian was originally taught by Bernard Jensen. And when he was doing it, he taught that the iris changes when the body changes, that the eye could set in extra fibers, that we call them lacuna, he would have called them lesions, change shape and size as the body heals. He also taught you could do an iris analysis with absolutely no background information from the client. There was a well-known herbalist here in my city who was a Jensen trained iridologist. And I've never been to this person, and he's since retired, but I've had some of his clients come to me since he did retire. And when they see how I do iridology, it's like, whoa, that's different. And I said, well, why? How did this other person do it? I said, well, you sit down across the desk. He looks at your eyes with his little lighted magnifying glass. He tells you exactly what's wrong. And then you go out to the front desk and you buy everything he recommended. And you come back in 3 weeks. And, that's just how he does it. And that's a very Jensenian way of doing it. I will tell you what's wrong. I don't want to hear from you. And I'm going to tell you when you're better. Okay. I'm not fond of that method. Traditional Jensenian iridologists have a very different style from modern Jensenian iridologists. The iridologists who are now being trained by Bernard Jensen's daughter-in-law are being taught a whole lot more constitutional iridology. She has updated most of Bernard's workings to, at least anything that she could, to be very constitutional, which is pretty exciting stuff. Constitutional iridology. We may not actually be touching on Rayid for time. Rayid or behavioral, just let me look at my other notes. So over here, okay. So just touching loosely on Rayid before we go further here. Rayid takes the markings that we assess for physical information and they interpret them for emotional information. So I tie a little bit of Rayid or emotional into my constitutional work because it gives me deeper insight into how my clients process information. If I know I'm working with someone where their eyes say they are creative, I cannot teach them in a linear fashion. I have to use a lot of analogies and a lot of description to have them understand this fully. On the other hand, if I'm working with someone who's a very linear thinker, and I see that in their eyes, if I spend time on analogies and deep descriptions, they're going to walk out. Well, maybe not quite, but they're not going to pay attention to all the fluff, right? They want A leads to B, leads to C. Just give me what I need to know. What's the bottom line? And so understanding their eyes from that emotional perspective helps me to communicate in their way so that they get the best benefit. Does that make sense? This is one of the reasons I love the behavioral stuff. Are you with me on this? Are we good? Just double checking to make sure you've still got access. We're good. Okay, great. Oh, so good. So good. Yes. Okay. Okay, constitutional. Let's touch on this. Originated with Joseph Deck and others. Get my slide to advance here. There we go. Used by medical doctors in Italy, Germany, and Russia. They use iridology as a screening tool to help direct the rest of their investigations and to give them deeper understanding of why. I mean, we know this, right? We know that there's how many different causes for a headache, right? Dehydration, constipation, stress, you got hit in the head with a rock, vascular issues, and there's more than that. We know that. And we need to understand that in order to come up with the right recommendations, right? So using iridology, we can begin to understand and symptoms, what the client is reporting, begin to understand what would be the best way to approach this headache. That's how medical doctors in Italy, Germany, and Russia use this. Brilliant way to use it. Correlative medical studies are being done. This is so exciting. There are naturopaths who are doing studies to validate not just iridology, but to expand it in different ways. So exciting. Constitutional teaches that the eyes are a reflection of the genetic structure of the body. The big buzzword these days is epigenetics. You've heard that word, right? You've heard epigenetics. When we look at an iris and when we understand how the body works, we can see epigenetic predispositions and tendencies. How's your mind doing? Is it blown? Just wondering. I think of the eyes as the reveal of epigenetics, which is so cool. And constitutional iridology is the foundation of the dynamic iridology course. Constitutional iridology teaches us what questions to ask. It does not give us the answers. So when you are on social media and someone posts an eye photo and they tell you this person has blah, 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 and they name 5 or 6 problems, and they're telling that from the eye, that's a Jensenian approach. A constitutional iridologist will want to know, what are the symptoms? What do I see in the eyes? What questions am I being taught to ask based on the symptoms and the eyes? Because that's going to give me the information I need to know how to move forward with this client. So iridology teaches us the questions to ask. Other iris and sclera changes may continue to become visible with time, revealing areas that may need support. Background information is important. We do not do an assessment cold. We want that conversation with the client. We want to know who they are. We want to know their history. I need to know their stress levels. I need to know their diet. I need to know a lot of things to help me understand more about why their epigenes are triggering in a way that is giving them these symptoms. Does that make sense? That this is a holistic thing. It's not just an iris assessment. It is a whole, complete and total assessment, right? So when we are looking at iridology, we look at the iris, which is in this image, of course, the cutaway, it's right here. This is the iris coming around here. We also, iridology has so expanded since I started, decades ago, 45 years ago. We now include looking at the sclera because the blood vessels in the sclera give us more information. We also look at some markers that show up in the cornea. And we look at the size and shape of the pupil. So really anything that is visible on the surface of that eye is fair game in an iris assessment nowadays. So different from when I started decades ago. Yay, here we go. You ready to play with some eyes now? You want to look at some eyes and see what we can learn here? Okay, do you have your pen and paper ready? Because this is where you're going to want to take notes. Okay, you ready? The first thing to know is that constitutional iridology, unlike other styles, relies very little on mapping. Mapping is actually probably way down the list of things we do because we're looking at constitution. We're not slicing and dicing and picking out one little part and one other little part and one other little part and focusing on just those. We want to look at the whole picture. And so we use the map as the last step or as something further down the line because our focus here is the whole person. We only dissect and defer to map if there's a good reason to. This alone is going to save you time and increase the efficacy of an iris assessment. You'll see what I mean as we go along. This is a quintessential example of what we call a lymphatic iris. A lymphatic iris will always have some blue. It may not be predominantly blue, but there will always be some blue in the iris, and there will always be some fibers visible. So these things here, these threads, we call them fibers. It's kind of a sloppy way of terming them, but that's what we do when we're lazy. We might have other colors on top. We've got a few other little pigments. Sometimes you'll see lots of other color washed over the top of the eye. That gives us all kinds of information. When we're looking at a lymphatic iris, we know that there are some common ways that they have problems. Many of their health concerns, most of their health concerns will center around their mucous membranes, acid levels in their tissues, not stomach acid, but acid levels in their tissues, and their lymphatic system. For lymphatic eyes, we start with questions like, is there a personal or family history of? We're interested in family history because what we see in the eyes comes down from the past 3 to 4 generations. Okay, so we need to know family history. My very first question is usually, but after what would you like my help with, is there anything running in the family? Do we have cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia of any sort? What goes on in the family? Not that these things are necessarily always inherited, but the genetic structure is passed down. And then what triggers those genes is diet, stress, sleep, how you live your life, how you love people. Those things all trigger epigenes, right? So we need to know the family history so that we can understand more where this person could go if they're not taking care. So at this stage of the game, then I'm asking, is there a personal or family history of asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, kidney disease? What do all of those conditions have? If you look at asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, and kidney issues, rather not kidney disease, kidney issues, what is the thing that ties all of those together? Let me know in the chat box. And incorrect answers are absolutely welcome. I will never shoot down an incorrect answer. I will just simply help you get the right information instead. What is it that ties asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, and kidney issues together? No ideas? Okay, I'm going to let that just percolate for a bit. Maybe someone will come up with it as we go. So I'm not looking at tiny details. I'm not looking at those little bits of fiber of pigment. I'm not looking at fibers that are doing their own thing and going across others. Those things are, I'm not getting that detailed here. We'll come to that later in the assessment. Even then, I'll only focus on them if they're important to my client's current situation. That doesn't mean that if they have a lung issue, I'm only looking at the lung area of the iris. I need to know what are the other organs and what are the other chemistries that would contribute to a lung issue, for instance, or contribute to bronchioles. So I love this. Thank you. People are putting answers in. Lymphatics, inflammation, immune system. So Jennifer, I'm going to lean on you a little bit. What I want to find out is, what is it that leads to inflammation? What is the chemistry that leads to inflammation? This is how I like to teach, is to get my students to go into what they know and start pulling things out. What leads to inflammation? And this is universal. Poor diet and health. And what do poor diet and health create in the body? What is the chemistry from poor diet? Acid imbalance. Yes, Jennifer. Acidity. Yes, Leanne. Yes, 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 yes. You've got this. Absolutely. So a lymphatic person is more prone to being too acidic in their tissues. So we're not talking digestion here. We're talking tissues. That leads to an increased risk for inflammation. So when we know that, we know what to do diet wise. And if we know where to look in the eyes to find the stomach indicators, we might also discover that, well, they actually do have a predisposition to digestive issues, which means if we want to take care of the acid imbalance, we need to work with foods, and we also need to work with supporting the digestion. Oh, and then how are the kidneys working? Do we see any indicators of kidneys? Did the client bring in any lab tests? Because we can consume food and break it down, but if the kidneys can't flush the excess acid out, then we're still going to end up too acidic. This is why we need to know anatomy and physiology, so we can start saying, well, what is connected to this root chemistry, and how is my client's body behaving in that regard? Liver support as well. Oh, Jennifer, you're a girl after my own heart. Liver and digestion are the two things I hit hard with everybody. You know, if you're going to come see me, it almost doesn't matter what's wrong with you. You're probably leaving with digestive and liver support, right? Because they are the root of so many things. So, you know, as we do this, again, we are looking to see how things connect. But with your lymphatic person, again, your question is there a personal or family history of asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, kidneys, right? Because those are either organs or situations that are because of high acid, or with the kidneys, they're not able to pull the acid out well enough. Okay. So you can use that with your very next client. You look in their eyes, use that with your partner tonight. Look in their eyes and go, oh, I know why your joints are achy. I know why your muscles are so sore after a workout. I know why you've always got a runny nose, or you've got throat congestion, right? I know why we can't seem to break up the eczema. Absolutely. This is another example of a lymphatic iris. You remember I said some blue, there has to be some blue, and it's not always going to be a beautiful baby blue. In this case, we've got kind of a steel gray blue with lots of sort of browns and tans and yellows and golds, but there's a steel gray blue under that. And so again, we're looking for the same explanations. Do we have asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, kidney issues? I'm looking to understand, what are their symptoms? What symptoms do they want my help with? We know symptoms are the messenger. The symptom may be uncomfortable, but it's not the cause of the problem, right? So if the person has eczema or eczema, depending on how you say that where you live, why? Why is the skin offloading this excess acid? Well, probably because the kidneys aren't handling it, probably because they've got the wrong foods going in, probably because they're not digesting things well, probably because the liver is cranky, right? And so we can use the eyes to see where we need to focus. One of the big differences between constitutional and Jensenian is when we do the work, the eyes are not going to change. Now, some of you that have got a Jensen background, did I just rock your world? So we can cleanse all we want. This is staying put. We can cleanse all we want. This is staying put. This is all genetic. All of this is genetic. This fiber is going to stay wonky like this. This is all genetic. Changing the diet, adding the right supplements doesn't change our genes. It changes our epigenetic manifestations. But it doesn't change the genes. The genes are still there. As a matter of fact, we sometimes see over time more pigment deposit in the eyes, which again is epigenetic. And it's telling us about situations that may be becoming active in the body, but we're not going to get rid of those pigments. How are you feeling with this? How are you feeling? Drop a comment in the chat box. Let me know if this is making sense. Okay. What do you think? So now we have very helpful. Excellent. Good job. Excellent. This is a hematogenic eye. Now you would call it brown. This person's driver's license says they have a brown eye. We call it hematogenic. Hematogenic. So when you see the word hematogenic, what does that make you think of? Blood. Jennifer says it's starting to click. Yes, yes, Jennifer, we're winning then. This is good. Okay, I get too excited when students, when the light bulbs start going off for students. So hematogenic blood, yes, absolutely. So when we see a true brown eye, there will be no visible fiber and there will be no visible blue or green in the iris itself. The true brown eye has the same structure as the blue eye with the one major difference, and it's not a structural difference, it's a pigment difference. The blue eye has virtually no pigment. The brown eye has a lot of pigment, and the pigment sits on top of the fiber in the eye, which is why we don't usually see fiber structure in a true brown eye. Okay, so if you see no fiber, you see none of those lines radiating outwards, and this is not an indication of fiber structure. Well, it does give us information, but it's not showing us where fibers are actually sitting the way we could see them in a blue eye. So when we see this, when we see this brown eye, no visible fiber, no blue or no green in the iris, we know that blood and liver are the areas that we need to be really paying attention to. That's where we need to be saying, how do my client's symptoms tie into blood and liver? Right? And of course, liver does over 500 different jobs. It can do whatever it darn well wants to make life miserable, right? Absolutely. Here is an example of seeing some fiber structure in a true hematogenic eye. We're not seeing individual little fibers, but we are seeing those openings that Jensen called a lesion. We call them lacunae. Lacunae just means an open space. And this gives us more information about this person. So people with hematogenic eyes are more prone to things like issues with their spleen. That would have to do with blood. Stomach and digestion. Circulation and heart, that's connected to blood. Varicose veins, that's connected to blood. Their pH tends to be a little more alkaline. And so we know we need a certain amount of acid to assimilate our minerals. So these people tend to have not quite enough acid to do that well. So they're very prone to mineral imbalance, especially calcium. So you need those minerals, including calcium, to balance your endocrine system and to keep your metabolism running well. So it's really common to see our hematogenic people having endocrine imbalances. Right? So we want to be aware of that so that we can make sure that we are supporting them. So depending on what symptoms or imbalances your client wants help with, the questions you might ask Your hematogenic person could include things like, is there a personal or family history of blood imbalances, allergies due to liver imbalances, immune issues due to liver imbalances, hormonal issues due to liver imbalances, blood lipid imbalances, including cholesterol, due to liver imbalances and dietary infractions, weight issues due to, oh yeah, liver imbalances again. Now, you wouldn't ask one client all of those questions. You would pick and choose the questions that relate to your client. So, do you know someone who's got what you think are true brown eyes? And if you do, just drop it in the chat. Just put brown, but maybe give me brown is beautiful in the chat box. And if you know someone who's got blue eyes, lymphatic eyes, give me blue is beautiful in the chat box. Yeah, you know people. So with what we're describing, are you seeing those people in these descriptions where their weak links tend to be? Now, all of the different things we're seeing, the different shapes in these eyes, the different wrinkles coming around this way, those are all details that we cover in dynamic iridology. Even the extra little pigments like this, that's all a part of the dynamic iridology course because it's needed to be proficient. Okay, this is our third constitution. Third constitution. This is the biliary type. So this type of iridologist, this is the type of eye that many iridologists out there who are not constitutional will say, this person needs to cleanse. That is what I used to tell people with this kind of an eye when I first started, when I was doing it the Jensen way, was, oh my goodness, you need to cleanse. I mean, we can see some fiber here, but if we do enough cleansing with you, and we've got fiber, get the right mouse going here. Oh my goodness, there we go. There we go. We've got some fiber here. If we do some cleansing with you, we can make these eyes blue. Would you like to have blue eyes? Great, let's do this cleanse. And we would cleanse, and we would cleanse, and we would cleanse some more. And the client would never, ever, their eyes would not change. And it was so disappointing. Amy, watch your emails. Okay. And so that is something that constitutional iridology really disagrees with. We do not cleanse and change eyes. The eyes are genetic. Cleansing isn't going to change your genes. It'll change your epigenetic expression, right? So this is also one that trips up most constitutional iridologists, because if you don't have enough light on the eye or enough magnification, it might look like it's a hematogenic eye, but it's really a biliary eye. When you see the word biliary, what do you think of? What does biliary make you think of? Biliary. Bile, yeah. Bile, liver, yes, absolutely. So these people they get the worst of both worlds. They are typically the offspring of lymphatic and hematogenic parents, or somewhere in their bloodline there was a lymphatic and a hematogenic, and somehow that's been passed down. And so they kind of get the predisposition to acid and inflammation from the lymphatic, but they could be too alkaline and have more liver blood from the hematogenic. So we have to ask questions. What we're going to see here is there'll be no blue in the fibers. So when we're looking in the iris itself, not including this little edge here, but the iris itself, there will be no blue. They may have gold or green in the body of the iris. They might have lots of gold highlights. This eye has lots of gold highlights. There might be this darker circle, this darker band hugging around the center of the eye. So those are the common things that we would usually see with a biliary iris. And from there, then, we would want to be asking questions, again, based on the client's symptoms and around the personal and family history, of course. Digestion. Are there any digestive symptoms, any history of digestion issues? So we're talking stomach and liver there. We want to know more about liver, which includes immune function, lipid balance, blood sugars, triglycerides, allergies, hormones, and so much more. We want to know about gallbladder, which usually focuses on gallstone formation, of course, although we do talk about the emotional side of that in dynamic iridology. And pancreas. We always think about blood sugar balance when we think of pancreas. We need to remember that pancreas secretes enzymes that help with carbohydrate digestion, and liver and pancreas need to work together to keep those carbs in check. All right, so that's where we're going to focus with biliary. Who do you know who's got a biliary iris? Or who do you think has a biliary iris? Do you know somebody? Who do you know? While you're thinking about that, I want to know from you, what has been your biggest takeaway so far? What has been your biggest aha moment? What about diabetic people? Matthew, that's a great question. It's going to depend on whether they are type 1 or type 2. Type 1 is an autoimmune disease. And so we sometimes don't see indicators in the eyes. Type 2, between the irides and the sclerae, there's almost always some giveaways that this person has it. And I've called it on several of my clients, particularly clients who I've worked with over the years, but I haven't seen them for a few years. And they come in and we reshoot their eye photos to see if any new things have popped up. And it's like, whoa, yeah, you think you're only in here for weight loss. I think we're in here to try to prevent type 2 diabetes. You know, when we review their family history again, oh yeah, my dad was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And what's your diet like? Pure garbage. All right, and you've gained how many pounds in the last few years? Oh, 30. No kidding. Okay, well, and you have a chronic inflammatory condition. I'm thinking of one client in particular who's got Ehlers-Danlos, which is where she doesn't repair her collagen properly. It's like, okay, yeah, well, you're walking straight towards type 2 diabetes, and I can't diagnose that you've got it, but I want you to get some blood work done, right? And so type 2, we can often peg that. There's so many indicators that can tie into type 2. Jennifer says, are green eyes with brown bursts a biliary or lymphatic? Green eyes with a brown burst will be biliary. Because remember, lymphatic has to have some visible blue. But as a biliary, they can have characteristics of lymphatic and or hematogenic. Right? They can get the combination there. All right. So what's your biggest takeaway? While you're typing that in. So when we look at eyes, so far we've only looked at the very surface, like the very top surface, the color, right? We also look at things like, do we see space between fibers? Do we see outlines of flower petals? Again, Jensen would call these lesions, we call them lacunae. Do we see other textures like these rings coming around? Do we see these little black lines radiating outward? Do we see extra pigments? This is in the cornea. This gives us a ton of information, right? What else do we see in here? There's so much information here, and we need to look at the different layers then that we can identify in an iris. So let's see where we go here. So I started learning iridology in 1979. Marisol says she came in late, but so far takeaway is how much is connected to just color. Yeah, you can get so much information from color. I started learning iridology in 79. We didn't have constitutional here yet. We only had Jensenian, and I was intrigued. I was a very young adult, and I started studying, and I started actually working as a health coach with herbology and nutrition and iridology. And after about 5 years, I started getting frustrated because all those promises that had been made to me that if we cleanse our clients, if we do these things, we're going to see their eye color change. We're going to see the lacuna in the eye disappear. You know, we're going to see all these indications of healing. It never happened. And about 10 years into the process, I was about ready to go, no, you know what? I'm not willing to put my reputation on something that makes me look like a charlatan. Just not. Walking away. Right around then, I was blessed to cross paths with someone to someone to someone kind of thing that connected me with constitutional iridology. And I have never looked back, because what we know now is, again, that everything that we see is genetic. These markings have been passed down through the generations, and depending on what's going on inside them, what we see inside, depending on what the outside edge looks like, tells us if these are being resolved through the generations or if they're kind of stuck and maybe getting worse. So we always need to ask our client about their health. We need to ask them what their symptoms are. What do they want our help with? What are they doing for their health? I mean, if this person comes in, let me rephrase this. If I've got two people come in and they have this exact same eye, like that would never happen. But if they did, just play with me in my sandbox here. If they did, and one person was on the junk food, fast food diet, and the other person was eating organically from scratch, not necessarily vegetarian or vegan, but eating whole foods, we would see a very different outcome for each of these people. The one that's on the junky diet is likely going to have a lot of symptoms and probably a lot of hormonal imbalances, including a risk of type 2 diabetes. Person that's on the more holistic diet, on the more whole foods diet, is likely going to have very few symptoms. And what symptoms they have are probably going to be much easier to manage because the nutritional status of these people is so different. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense. Yeah, it does. Jennifer and Matthew says yes. Fantastic. Fantastic. So we can't look at an eye and say, you have this problem, you have this problem, you have this problem, because we don't know yet what the symptoms are and what the person is doing for their health. That is crucial information. The eyes show us predispositions and tendencies, not absolutes. So it's really important we keep that in mind. Let's do a couple of case studies here. You want to do some case studies? Could that be the case with siblings who might have the same eye color and from the same makeup? Yeah, absolutely. So if you've got two sibs, they've got very similar eyes, but they've got very different diets, very different lifestyles. One is a couch potato eating a lot of junk food, doesn't like people, is always irritable. Well, it's because they're malnourished, but their body's going to struggle. Whereas you've got the other person who is very conscientious, gets some exercise, eats healthfully, gets enough sleep at night, manages their stress, takes care of their body. You can see very different outcomes. Absolutely. This is Michelle. We're going to look at her eyes with two different kinds of lighting. This is another trick that some people will use on social media, that they will change the lighting and call it before and after photos. So you need to know what you're looking for. So Michelle came to me wanting to have a baby. I do a lot of fertility and high-risk pregnancy kind of work. She and her husband had been trying for about a year. They'd had no luck. Her husband's semen analysis was fine. Michelle was having periods every 28 days. She described her flow as a smear on the toilet paper. She'd used the birth control pill for 16 years, and she'd been off it for about a year. She never, ever, ever, ever had needed any sanitary products. The doctor said, that's fine. I'm thinking, well, that says the endometrial lining isn't very thick. And you need a good endometrial lining in order for a fertilized egg to implant. Something's not quite right here. And so I'm thinking there's got to be a hormone imbalance. She also had almost no ovulatory mucus. So I look at her eyes, and I see here she's lymphatic. So I know she's prone to being over acid. She's also, from what I see in her eyes, prone to or predisposed to hormone imbalances. And very specifically, she has a pigment that catches my attention. This tiny little pigment right here. And I kept my lips zipped because I can't diagnose and I can't prescribe. We've got all of these lacunae here. We've got this one sitting in the kidney reaction field, this one coming up right through the pituitary. We could cleanse till we're blue in the face. This is not going away. Her pituitary and this little line right through the pituitary says pituitary wants to have some attitude problems, right? So I'm thinking as I'm seeing all of these things, predisposition towards blood sugars, adrenals, thyroid, and then we switch the lighting on the camera. Do you see how these wrinkles pop up? Now we see these very clearly, right? What that suggests to me is, these are called contraction furrows. It suggests to me that she is sympathetic dominant. Well, what does it mean when somebody runs in their sympathetic nervous system? What kinds of things do we see? Sympathetic nervous system. Fight or flight. Yes, yes, Jennifer, absolutely. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of the F words that are not swear words, right? And yeah, so as I chatted with her in her first appointment, she was an HR manager. So she was in charge of dealing with the employees of a very large firm when they were struggling. So they would come and they would dump all their stresses in her office, which is what she was there for. She's not a social worker, though that wasn't her training. And she's got to connect them with the right services. She had one time when she came in for an appointment, they just had to fire an employee who came into her office and threatened to kill everybody, including her. And she had to call the police and security and an ambulance because they thought he was suicidal as well. Right. So talk about stress, right? I don't never thought of HR as being stressful like that, but apparently. So I asked her about her diet. It was clean. Like she ate very conscientiously, but not nearly enough protein and not nearly enough good fats. Well, you need protein and fats to make hormones. I asked her about her stress because those wrinkles coming around in her eyeball tells me she internalizes her stress and she burns through B vitamins, calcium, and magnesium really quickly, right? So then I noticed that little pigment and I'm going, So now I'm thinking we need to be using a prenatal vitamin that has methylated Bs. We need some N-acetylcysteine and we need some omega-3. And that's going to be the core of what we do to start getting her body into balance. Proteins, fats, and a few supplements. After a month or so, we added some herbs on a very cyclical basis. I have a program that I've developed where there's specific herbs that we use in the follicular phase and specific herbs we switch to for the luteal phase. So follicular is to get them to stimulate the release of an egg, and the follicular is to keep the progesterone up so that if the egg gets fertilized, we can maybe hold on to it. Within a few months, her menstrual flow required hygiene products. I was excited. I think she was too, because it was visible, measurable. We are doing something different here. Her ovulation mucus increased in quantity and quality. Very good. Now she was aware of when she was ovulating. We were getting the good stretch to that mucus. I don't think she ever got to the full 10 centimeters that we like to see, but she did get some stretch, which is great. And 6 months after we started working, she got a positive pregnancy test. We were stoked. About 4 months in, she did 23andMe. And she sent me an email. I swear my computer was going to blow up. She was so anxious. She'd got the results back and it said she had MTHFR. Do you know what MTHFR is? Do you? MTHFR, yes or no? No? Okay. It's a situation where the liver lacks the enzyme to properly methylate B vitamins. So if you take a non-methylated folic acid and a non-methylated B12, they accumulate and they can become toxic and can create all kinds of things, particularly emotionally and mentally, right? And so that was why I put her on the prenatal vitamin that I did, because it had the methylated Bs. So she would have the folate and the B12 she needed and could actually use them without them building up to be toxic. And so, but she sent me this email and she was panicking. Like, is my baby going to be okay? I should have never got pregnant. This was a bad idea. I don't know why I wanted a baby so badly. I went, whoa, whoa, hop on a Zoom with me. I want to talk to you right now. I want to show you something. Hop on a Zoom. Here's the link. So she hopped on Zoom and I pulled up her iPhotos and I said, don't worry about this. Do you see this little mark right here? I said, that's what made me think you might have MTHFR, but I couldn't tell you that because I'm not a licensed medical doctor. That is why you're on the prenatal vitamins you're on. And you just need to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath right now. Take a deep breath right now. I want to hear it. Want to hear a deep breath? Yeah, okay, good. And we got her slowing down. And I said, now your only next job is you go home and you start dancing with your baby, you start singing to your baby, and you start reading baby books to your baby. But my baby's only 4 months gestation. I know. But you've got to start enjoying this pregnancy and stop worrying about it because the worry is going to do more damage than anything. Go have fun with this. Right. So we got her turned around. So good. So good. Now, it's really important again to remember that we don't need to nitpick every detail. I did not focus on every single lacuna here. We'd have been here for a month of Sundays. Every fiber that's doing something wonky, every color in her eyes that isn't blue, every crease, that would just be silly. It would be absolutely silly. And so we take that step back, we look and we see, what do we know about the client for symptoms? What does she want the help with? What are the markings that give us information about that situation? That's what we work with. Right? We don't need all the other details because they are irrelevant if they're not causing a problem. Largely irrelevant. Right? We're still going to work with diet and lay that foundation. Anybody can make a list of markers and a list of recommendations. Very few iridologists are well trained enough to be able to choose the important markers and make appropriate recommendations. And that's what I teach, and that's what we practice when you're studying dynamic iridology. So important. All right, let's do another. You want to do another one? All right. Again, when I saw in my early training, when I saw an eye like this, I was taught we needed to cleanse. This person was super toxic. And oh my goodness, I could save their life if we could just cleanse them enough and we could change these eyes blue and it would be so good. So good. You'll feel so great when your eyes are blue. Yeah, no, it doesn't work like that. I had read books where they showed before and after photos. And when I looked at the photos, they looked fine to me. As I look at photos like that now, I see that they changed something to get those photos. And you'll see this on social media all the time when people say, this is what my eye used to look like. This is what it looks like now. Look for things like, are the skin tones the same? Is the light artifact the same shape? Is there the same amount of light? Is it coming from the same direction? Ask them if they took the picture with the same camera. Did they do the before and afters with the same camera? If there are scans of prints, what brand of film was used? Was it the same camera? What brand of paper were they printed on? Every one of those things will change the output, which makes a lot of, like 95% of the before and afters, if not more, that you see on social media totally invalid. Right? You know that for science, you control for parameters, right? So if you want to do a true before and after, you take the photo with the camera, the same settings, the same lighting, in the same room lighting, everything's got to be the same. And you repeat that process exactly when you want to do the after photos. And then and only then can you call it a true before and after. Does that make sense? If we're going to call this a science, we've got to treat it like a science, right? Okay, so important. All right, do we have, we've got another case here. This is another case. This is a client who's been with me since day one. She was one of my very first clients. She's still with me. I adore her. We were having babies together. We're pretty much age mates, right? We've been through a lot together. We've been through losing parents together and, kids getting into trouble together and all kinds of things. So on her most recent comeback, Because clients do that, right? They come in for 4 or 5 appointments, get feeling great, then they disappear for a few years, and then they forget what you taught them and they start falling apart, and then they come back in for a few more appointments, and it's that constant ebb and flow. And so she started coming back a couple of years ago, and being in her late 60s, she had gained some weight. Her blood pressure was up. Her cholesterol was up. Her triglycerides were up. Her hemoglobin A1C was now in the type 2 diabetic range. She begged some time from her doctor. She said, I'm going to work on this. I'll come back in 3 months. Can we do testing again in 3 months? The doctor said, absolutely. So client came to see me. We got her on a program. She was doing so well, so well. Reminded her of everything that she knew and got her eating right, got her being physically active, got her on the right kinds of supplements. She went back to the doctor, and the doctor was, wow, your cholesterol is normal. Your hemoglobin A1C is completely in the safe range. Your blood pressure's even come down, and you've lost 20 pounds in 3 months. Man, that's amazing. We were pretty excited about that, right? She was doing so well. And then about a year later, her grandson attempted suicide. And that just derailed her completely, right? As it would any parent, grandparent, sibling, right? And she totally fell off. And the stress was just more than she could bear. She forgot to take care of herself. And about 6 months later, she had a heart attack, right? And with that heart attack, her husband, they live like 3 minutes from a major hospital. And her husband knew that if they called for the ambulance, it would be at least a half an hour to make a 3-minute trip. Go figure. And so he just put her in the car and took her straight over, which was the best thing he could have done, because it meant that she got care right away. So as we look at her eyes, we'll talk about what we did initially to get her feeling better, because she has are we going to call these biliary eyes? Look at the fibers that we can see in her eyes, little bits of fiber down here. That makes these biliary. We know we've got more fibers in here, a few more in here, a few more in here. So this is telling us liver is a key focus. Well, doesn't that make sense with cholesterol, triglycerides, things like that, right? So the diet we did with her was basically high protein, high fats and oils, low carb. You might call it keto. We didn't quite take it all the way to keto, but we took her in that direction. We supported digestion, critical to support her digestion, because she was going to be eating more protein than she'd eaten in a long time. And that's a hard change when you're in your late 60s. We gave her some berberine, which is great for helping to balance out insulin and make the cells more insulin receptive. We did omega-3 with her, quite a bit of omega-3. We did for digestion, hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes, and got her to have protein at breakfast time, which was a big switch for her, right? And we also got her to walk 30 minutes a day, which was great. She loved that. And we also got her to include lots of good fats in her diet. Again, such a brilliant, brilliant protocol for her, because it worked so well. Now that she's had the heart attack, it's been about 2.5 or 3 years. She's on so many meds, and the doctors, of course, have really made her fearful that if she goes off any of the meds, she'll die. And so we're having to work very carefully with foods and with culinary herbs in the hopes that we can kind of work around things and get her totally back on track. But it's a slow process. And with being biliary, knowing we needed to do liver, knowing we needed to support stomach, this film around the edge is the giveaway that her liver's not handling carbs very well, right? And that film is going to stay there. That's in the cornea. Again, we learned as Jensenians that every open space in the eye was a problem happening right now. It needed to be addressed right now. Not quite. We know that's not true anymore. And I'm so glad we know that's not true, because, it's really hard to speak of hope and empowerment when you've got an eye that has so many lacuna and you're thinking every one of these is a clinical problem happening right now. It's so much easier to think of hope and to be teaching empowerment when you can tie markers together and understand how they work together. Right. So this is really, really important stuff. Okay. Another client of mine, an Asian couple, She is in her mid-30s, and they'd been trying for 3 years to have a baby. They'd been to the fertility clinic with no results. The fertility clinic had given her some drugs, and that was about it. She's got these contraction furrows again, so she's always in sympathetic mode, burns through her B vitamins really quickly. When we started chatting with her on her intake, periods 90 days apart, that's the first marker for PCOS. Do you know what PCOS is? Yes, yes, hopefully. And PCOS is always bosom buddies with type 2 diabetes. So I asked her, have they ever used the term polycystic ovarian syndrome with you? Oh, yes, that's what they say I've got. Right. And has anyone ever said anything about type 2 diabetes? So I'm not saying she's got it. I'm asking if anyone else has said it. Oh, yeah, they've got me on that form. Great. Okay. And she's done Clomid a few times to try to conceive, to hyperovulate. But if your cycles are 90 days apart, Clomid's not going to be of any use. Right. So knowing that she has PCOS means she probably has MTHFR. Oh, hey, wait a minute. She has an extra little pigment sitting right there. That's all it takes for us to go, I wonder if you've got MTHFR, right? So we did the methylated prenatal vitamin with her. We looked at her liver enzymes because her cholesterol was also elevated. Okay, so we know we've got some work to do there. We got her, again, cleaning up her diet, getting off the sweet roll and juice for breakfast, getting off the Asian food with the sweet sticky sauces for lunch and for supper, and got her on protein and veggies. And the mantra is literally protein on the veggies, right? I get them to literally do that with me, protein on veggies, so that they can get it in their brains that that's what we're going to be doing, right? We got her, she didn't have any weight to lose. She was a very petite little thing. But we got her to where it took just a few months to get her cycles down to 35 days. Now we're talking a fertile cycle, possibly fertile. She's in the right window, right? She still didn't have great ovulation mucus. So we start adding different supplements. We add N-acetylcysteine, we add omega-3, right? Critical for this. We've got those prenatal vitamins going in, and that's all working really well. So we're starting to get ovulation mucus. This is great. We've got her charting her temperature. We know she's got that low luteal, the low follicular phase, the high luteal phase. She's holding the luteal phase for long enough. This is great. She's now fertile. Okay, so now what? Now what? They keep trying for a few more months. Yeah, we're getting to the about 15, 16 month mark of working together, and we've got her. It's looking so good, but she's still not pregnant. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to have to tell them they need to fire me soon, right? Because I don't want to keep spending their money if they're not getting results now. And so we did one last ditch effort. They didn't know this was last ditch. I did the research and I discovered that if we put black cohosh with the Clomid, there's research done on that. 5 days of Clomid, and you layer up the black cohosh on top of that, right? That it really increases the chance of conceiving. So we did that, and I didn't hear back, and I didn't hear back. And I'm watching her temperature chart, and I'm going, oh man, and just really nervous. And we're having another appointment. And I'm up all night thinking, how am I going to tell them that I've done everything I know to do? I've even found answers that I didn't know existed before. How are we going to do this? And they come in and they say, we need to talk to you. And I went, yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, you're firing me, aren't you? And they said, we did a pregnancy test and we're pregnant, right? So as I look at her eyes, a couple of things here. Get the right mouse going. All of the brown says liver, right? This says probably MTHFR, not a guarantee up, but a high likelihood up. This says burns through the B vitamins at record speed. Well, if she's getting them in the wrong form, we're going to have big trouble. And then looking at her eye, this is her right eye, I believe. I think it's her right eye. Let me just measure this. There's a way to tell by measuring, and I should have marked whether this was right or left, but I forgot to. I lied. It's her left eye. It's her left eye. And so with her left eye, this is running right through the ovary. And Matthew says left. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. I sometimes they're so close that I have to measure, but thank you, Matthew. You are right. So this is coming right through the ovary, which says inherently there wants to be a problem with the ovary. So we had to work really hard, right? But we did it. We got her past the PCOS. We got her past the blood sugar issues. We got her to where she was pregnant. She did not develop gestational diabetes. The doctors all said she would. She did not. She and her husband kept eating exactly the way I had instructed them to, just and he was doing it just to be supportive, right? And that was great because it worked. It worked like a charm. And she had a 4-hour labor start to finish and popped out the cutest little baby you've ever seen, right? So her eyes, I wouldn't have known to go methylated if I hadn't seen this. I wouldn't have known liver was really involved if I hadn't seen the haze around the edge of her eyes. I wouldn't have known that we needed to jack up her B's a little bit if I hadn't seen this. I wouldn't have known that we needed to pay attention to that ovary, which is where that black cohosh on top of the clomid came into play, if I hadn't seen this, right? The eyes gave me what I needed to be able to ask her the right questions and give her better answers. And that's what iridology is all about. That's what it's all about. How are you doing? How are you doing? We're getting close to the end here. Oh, one more. Okay, another case and then a little more information after that. Oh, we're going to go overtime. I hope you can stay with me. This is a fellow. He's a returning client. He had been away from me for 6 years. And the first time around when he was first coming in, yeah, he was interested, but he wasn't really focused, right? He wasn't really doing the homework very well. So he comes into me. He's in his mid 60s, 5 feet 11, 175 pounds. And he's been to the doctor. Doctor says your hemoglobin A1C is 7.2, which is diabetic. It's not pre-diabetic, it's diabetic. His glomerular filtration rate, so how his kidneys are working, is at 61. 60 is where they start saying you're in stage 1 kidney failure. And his lab said that his potassium was slightly low. So his doctor is going, yeah, you are in the early stages of diabetes. We're going to put you on metformin. We're going to put you on glumetza and giardians. We're going to put you on hydrochlorothiazide because your blood pressure is up. We're going to put you on trandolapril for your cholesterol. Oh, and then you're going to need some sildenafil because being on blood pressure meds, you're not going to be able to perform sexually. He was also on mylan-torvastatin for cholesterol. So he's on all these drugs. He's going, I don't want to be on these drugs. Help me, Judith, help me. So I did. I noticed that he was clearing his throat a lot. That can either be postnasal drip or it can be hypoacid stomach with a stomach sphincter and esophageal stomach sphincter that is not closing properly, right? So breakfast for him was a cinnamon bun or Cheerios. Anyone see anything wrong with that? Yeah, Matthew says yes. Love it, Matthew. Absolutely. That is not the breakfast of champions. That is the breakfast of someone who wants diabetes, right? Suppers, his wife is a flight attendant, so she's on 4-day pairing. So she's out of town for 4 days at a stretch and then home for whatever time. So, when he's alone, it's pizza or fast food because who wants to cook when it's just one person? So we looked at his eyes and we're going, okay, we're going to see what we can do here. We've got that slight haze at the edge of his eyes that says, yeah, liver's not happy. You're probably not handling carbs very well. We see his stomach doesn't work great. Genetically, it's not programmed to work great. And if you're putting garbage food in, it's going to work even less well. We see that his intestinal tract genetically lacks tone. And we see that he's got these contraction furrows. So he functions in fight or flight. And Matthew, and garbage medication. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So what did we do with him? I haven't even dissected individual markings or anything like that. I just kept it global here. Got him to do protein and veg. Remember the mantra, protein on the veggies, right? Got him to do that. Got him to clean up his snacks so that he was doing an apple with clean nut butter. Lunch had to be a salad with real meat, not processed meat. Supper, protein and veggies. He could do a stew, a homemade stew, or a stir fry, or roasted veggies and grilled meat. I really didn't care as long as it was protein and veggies. And portion control. Like eat a little less than you think you want to, right? Chew your food. He was in the habit of unhinging his jaw and swallowing his prey whole. He was not chewing well. So we use some L-arginine because that helps to create the NO2, which helps to relax the blood vessels. So that's a Band-Aid thing. It's not a real cure. It's a Band-Aid thing. We did berberine, again, to help him be more insulin receptive. And we got him walking twice a day for 30 minutes at a time. So he was walking for an hour a day. As we continued to work, we added digestive support, both HCl and a broad spectrum enzyme that has a bit of liver support in it because, that liver's not handling his carbs well. And over the course of about 4 months, we took him down from blood pressure that the doctors felt needed medication down to BP of 118/74 without meds. We got his blood sugars down from 7.2 to 5.9, which is good, but it's still not quite good enough. Oh, sorry, we got his blood sugars. His blood sugar is different. Sorry, so blood sugars, we got them down to 5.9, but we also got his hemoglobin A1C down to 5.9. So a little bit more work to do on those. But with that amount of improvement, his cholesterol was coming down as well. And so was his triglycerides. The doctor, with all of that improvement, kept saying, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it because it's working for you. Bye, Gwen. Hope to talk to you soon. And so catch the replay when I send it to you, okay? Because there's some important information coming up. So we got him, the doctor has been taking off medications. So reduced him from, what was he on to begin with? It was like 6 or 7 meds. He's now just using 1 blood pressure med and the Viagra. And so with any luck, we'll get him off those soon. All right. So with all that, was that fun? What'd you learn? What did you learn? Because I want to share more with you. I want to give you so much more. And that's what I would do in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System. It is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths, people who have a college level anatomy and physiology class under their belt. And it's to help you streamline your clinical work without sacrificing client care. Too many holistic practitioners see the client, either spend like 3 hours with them, or they do the intake, then the practitioner goes off and spends 2 or 3 or 4 hours creating a report with a protocol to bring back to the client at a later date. And with that, they overwhelm their clients. And it means that the clients can't manage the programs because they're too bulky, too many steps. Clients don't follow through, clients don't get results, clients don't come back. But when we know how to use iridology to get it done, get the assessment done that needs to be done for today, right now in session, get the program that the client needs to have done today, right in session, it means you're not going to overwhelm your client. They're going to be able to follow through and get the work done, get some success, come back in a month, and you can start building each succeeding month for the next 3 or 4 or 5 months till you've got them on the program that they really need to be on, but you've done it without overwhelming them. Long-term retention, I mentioned the client who'd been with me for 45 years. I've got so many clients who've been with me for 20 to 45 years. It is so fun to work with them, to work with 2nd and 3rd generations of families, where I took care of the woman who is now the grandma when she was having babies, and now I'm taking care of those moms while they're having babies. It is so much fun. The next Dynamic Iridology course is starting on May 15th. Registration is open, and you need to speak with me privately. We need to have a little Zoom meeting to talk about the course with you, because we need to make sure that you've got what you need in order to do the course, right? So important that you come in properly prepared. I want to make sure this course is the right fit for you. And I'm just going to type in this URL. And I think I did that without any typos, which is exciting for me. I don't know about you, but it's exciting for me. I'm going to send that to everybody right there. And so what we do in this little meeting that we have is, again, we look at what are your goals? What is your business? How are you wanting to implement iridology? Is this going to really be the smartest thing to do? And if it is, and you've got that anatomy and physiology, I will invite you to enroll. If it's not, then we'll talk about other options. We'll talk about what maybe needs to happen first, or, we just want to make sure it's the right fit for you. That's all it comes down to. If you don't have anatomy and physiology already, reach out to me, let me know. I'll connect you with a course. You can get it done. And then we can talk about enrolling in dynamic iridology, because I will only accept you if you've got the A and P, because we go deep. And if you don't know how the body works, you're going to get lost. And that's not my goal. I don't want to lose a student. I really don't want to lose a student. So, dynamic iridology assessment system. And this is the course that will prepare you to certify as an iridologist through the International Iridology Practitioners Association. 22.25 to 2.5 hour live webinar classes. They are recorded for playback on demand. So if you have to miss a class, not a big deal. You can catch it on the replay. We do live group mentoring twice each month. We do a webinar base, but everyone has their mics open, and students and graduates can come in and ask questions, share cases, get whatever support they need. It's actually not MeWe. I should have updated this. We do have a private community as well, but it's not on MeWe anymore. It's in a more off-grid kind of place where we can talk about anything we want to do with iridology and health. You receive as a gift in the course a 225-page digital textbook. This is the textbook that I wrote. It's been approved of by the International Iridology Practitioners Association. And at this stage, it is still only available to my students. I do not sell it separately yet, although that may be coming soon. About 45 pages of digital study notes, Cliff's notes, Cole's notes, whatever you want to call them. We call them the cheat sheets because that's what they are. They bring the whole course down into point form, which makes it easy to access if you're with a client, if you just need to refresh your memory quickly about something. IPA certification mentoring. Nearly every other instructor I know of who is IPA certified charges extra to mentor their students for certification. At this stage, I do not. I include that as a part of your tuition for a limited time, right? You need to get your certification done within a specific amount of time to take care of this as my gift to you. And I limit the amount of students per cohort, no more than 10 students per cohort. I value interaction and I value connection. The more connected we feel, the more comfortable you'll be asking questions, the easier it will be for me to give you the correction if you need it, or even to pat you on the back when you're doing a wonderful job, which you'll do most of the time, right? But we need to have that trust, and that's easier to develop when we've got a smaller group, and that's why I keep my groups very small. Sophia Perez said this when she actually posted this. She's one of my certified grads. She posted this on the IPA website. The commitment that Judith has for teaching is extraordinary, and the amount of support you get from the iridology course is fabulous. The material is very clear and thorough. The pace of the course is dynamic, but with enough time to integrate all the parts. As this was my second iridology course, I was not sure if it would just be an add-on, but it has exceeded my expectations. I've learned lots from the course material and classes, expanded previous knowledge, and gained more confidence. I can see now how this course has helped me to get better answers from my clients and design effective protocols in very little time. Highly recommended for beginners and advanced. I really appreciate it when I've got students who especially if they've been certified before, come in and they are excited about what they've learned. That's really cool, really cool. Kimberly Zadalis has a master's degree as a radiology physician's assistant and tons of credentials in holistic health. If you're wondering which iridology course to take, you can stop looking. You found it. Judith Cobb is an excellent instructor with many years of experience. She's a caring and compassionate person who is dedicated to the field of iridology and her students. I personally practice both Eastern and Western physiology medicine and was very impressed with the layout of her program. She makes it easy for her students to balance work, life, and study. So again, Really cool. Like to see those things. And one last one, Sharon Bimrose, who's a naturopath in Australia. She said, I'd already taken iridology as a part of my studies as a naturopath. However, Judith's course, we used to call it Confident Nutritionist, now it's just Dynamic Iridology, surpassed my previous training in structure, content delivery, documentation, and support. Judith taught in a manner that I could understand visually and auditory. Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology was well delivered, inspiring and motivating to give me the much needed structure to the knowledge I had already learned over the years. This course also provided me with the most up-to-date iridology information, along with the added bonus of Judith's extensive experience of holistic health. In absolute appreciation, Judith, I thank you for making me a better iridologist. So as we are getting ready to wrap up, questions. We've covered a lot. You've done so well. I kept you way over it and apologies. I was having too much fun. What can I say? Having too much fun. Questions. Grab that link from the chat box. If you've got the A&P and you're thinking, yeah, I think it's ready. I think I'm ready to look at doing a course. I'm ready to invest some time and some money and to be mentored. Not just take a course, but to be mentored, because the one thing that I didn't point out, let me just pop back here. Let me. Yeah, one thing I didn't point out is these twice each month, mentoring sessions, the office hours, are open to my students and my graduates. So even if you're certified, even if you certified 5 years ago, if you've got a case you need that you want help with, if you've got a question that you want help with, you are welcome to come back to these office hours for as long as I'm teaching. The course is 20 weeks long, or 20 classes long, which typically takes us 21 weeks. I usually take 1 week off in the middle so we can all catch our breath. And then there's the certification mentoring period after that as well, right? What day of the week and time of day are the 20 classes? This next one will be, you're welcome, Princess. So good to see you. This next one will be starting on Wednesday, May 15th. I believe that's a Wednesday. Let me just double check. Thursday is May 15th, sorry, May 15th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time till 7:30-ish. Okay. So these ones will go into the summer. They will end, I think they end pretty close to September, if not early September. If you're going on vacation, don't let that stop you, because remember, every class is recorded and you can come back and catch the recordings, right? They're up on the student site for as long as you've got access to the student site. So don't worry about if you have to miss a class. If you've got a sick child, or if you're sick, or there's a family emergency, or you're going on vacation, it's okay, right? Jennifer's asking it's 2:45 in the UK now. Any earlier? Oh, good. It recorded, but would be good to intro. Yeah, absolutely. Right. I get it. You stayed up late. Yes, it is late there in the UK, Matthew. Wow. You're either a night owl or you're really wanted this. I'm glad you joined us. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, 5 o'clock would put it to midnight. So that'd be midnight to like 2:30 your time in the UK. And maybe, Matthew, it would be that you would come to every other class. There's always an option, right? Always an option there. So other questions, a P&A class that I recommend is the one that is offered through the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. You can take their P&A as a standalone class. I've had that one approved by IPA, that it meets the IPA requirements and standards for P&A. It's also a self-paced class, which means depending on your life, you could, if you really buckled down and could put in 3 hours a day, which some people could, some people couldn't, you could have it done in time to join us for the May class, which would be cool. Herbology classes, I integrate herbs into my iridology course. And once you've done dynamic iridology, I am fleshing out some other courses, like we've got a women's holistic health and iridology, which again, you have to be a graduate of my course or a certified iridologist through IPA to enroll in it. And we do a lot with herbs in that course. And I'm constantly building out more courses. So there will be more. You really, for herbs, you really want to take a course that is based where you are if you want to do like a full-on herbal course, because the herbs that grow and are available in your area will be different than from maybe where I live or someone who lives, I don't know where you live, Jennifer. So, Southern California will have different herbs than what Nova Scotia has, kind of thing. So you really want a course that is local on that one, if you can, and then you add to it with other kinds of courses, other herb content, right? Yeah, so just popping back down to that link. There you go. All right. Jennifer's in Illinois. So you're central time, I believe, in Illinois, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and your climate is very different from mine. Very different. You probably don't hit -40 in the wintertime there, and your summer is probably longer than mine. So you would want to try to find a course that was local to get your core training in herbs. And then you could branch out and take courses with other instructors to add on to that. All right. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. I am looking forward to speaking with many of you in an insight call to talk about the course and to talk about whether you're ready for it, and potentially to offer you an invitation to join me there. Do take care. Thank you for being with me. And Jennifer, I will, how will I get that to you? Jennifer, can you PM me your email address, because I'm not seeing your last name here. And so I just want to make sure that I send it to the right person. I will shoot it to you in a quick email. Okay. Or if you PM me on Facebook, I can shoot it to you on Facebook. All right. Perfect. All right. So with that, my friends, have a great evening. Thank you so much for being with me. I had a ton of fun. I hope, more importantly than that, I hope you've learned something. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding and appreciation of what iridology is and how you can use it in your practice. And yeah, I would love to chat with you. Okay, fantastic. Matthew's going to reach out. Fantastic. So I look forward again to talking with so many of you. And you're all so very welcome. It was great to have you with me tonight. Take care. Have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.